welcome to everyone dialing in to our new media showcase. My name's Mike and I'm the organizer of this panel, and I'll be handing over to our moderator, Rodney Orpheus, shortly. Just a note on timekeeping, we'll be ending the webinar at 1:45 the hour, at which time we'll head over to our digital hangout. That's at ditto.tv/TCC. So without further ado, let me hand over to you, Rodney.
Hello and welcome to Ditto's new media showcase. This is being brought to you directly from the team behind TechCity Connect. And today we're going to show you everything you need to put together your own online events like this one. This webinar is being recorded so you can watch or share it later. And of course, you can enter any questions you might have into the chat in the GoToWebinar site panel. We'll be monitoring the chat and tackling your questions at the end of the presentation. So first, let's do some introductions. I'm Rodney Orpheus. I'm a musician, author, tech evangelist. Been involved in the audio and video industry for many years as a producer and product designer. And I've worked with many leading AV companies, and I lecture at universities and business events around the world. Well, it used to be around the world. Now it's like everyone else, I'm lecturing around my own house. And I'm currently director of Stream Connect Studios, supplying webcasting solutions internationally. And over to Mike.
And I'm Mike Richardson, COO of Ditto and head of the account management team you'll be hearing from today. I have over 10 years experience in marketing, and I've been with Ditto for 2 years launching content including websites, webinars, white papers and video. Today we're joined by the Ditto team including Jess Black, Hayley McCarthy, Joseph Lee, Jess Migliori, Jonathan Singer and Nick Short.
All right. So let's start with the discovery phase. Why would we run a digital event in the first place? Who are we running it for? And how do we get started, Mike? Where do these digital events sit in the sales and marketing pipeline?
Fantastic. So if I go to the next slide, what we have here is something we show our clients as an example of the various content marketing techniques you can use. We've got white papers, news articles, etc. And we sort of use webinars and digital events interchangeably. And as you can see, there's sort of a pipeline of people moving from awareness to research to an initial contact to a conversation, and ending up on the right hand side with maybe a phone call, a meeting, a subscription, etc. And we know from sort of Google research that people really need sort of 10 interactions with your brand before they're willing to sort of reach out, make contact, or maybe make a purchase. What we do like to explain to our clients is that leads moving through the funnel, it might not be exactly A to B. So you're not going to run a digital event and the client's not going to pick up the phone and start demanding to buy stuff from you. Some might come in through social, see a video, see a press release, and then eventually reach out. Some might need to go from the news, see a couple of webinars and then reach out. But this is all great in terms of thought leadership and content marketing. And the final point on that is, a series of digital events is much more useful than a one and done. I think a lot of people would run a single webinar and hope that, like I say, all of their potential clients start getting in touch. But it's really important to sort of keep a content marketing flow, and as we say at Ditto, a regular drumbeat. And turning back to yourself, Rodney, I mean, we're using GoToWebinar today, but there are lots of platforms businesses could use for digital events. Could you talk about why our audience should want to run a digital event and the decisions they'll have to make early on in the process in terms of what platform to use?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really all about the 3 C's. It's about your content, your contacts, and your cost. How you want to present your content, who you want to present that content to, and what your budget is. The best place to start, as always, really, is with your customers. The platform you use needs to be appropriate to the target audience, which is pretty obvious, really, I think, and to the information you're trying to get across to them. So take what we're doing today as a perfect example. We're using GoToWebinar, which is a fantastic platform for getting a detailed presentation across to a pre-selected group of prospects who already have an interest in the subject. So basically, it's an evolution and an expansion of the classic PowerPoint demo. If you already have material in PowerPoint, it's pretty easy to repurpose that material and turn that into a webinar format very quickly. And then you can get that out to a fully remote audience, which is especially important in the current climate. And webinars can be fantastic for making sure your potential customers are fully aware of what you offer and for closing deals that you're chasing. So it's a really powerful weapon to have in the armory. But the other alternative is to go up a level into full webcasting. I've got a little 2-minute show reel video here I did earlier showing how we work with webcasting. Mike, could you run that video? I'll take you through it. Okay, so the thing I think you can see about webcasting is that although it looks much more complex than the GoToWebinar format, if you work with a good technology provider, it's actually easier to do than a webinar is. From your side, as the client, if you like, all you have to do is make a Skype call to the studio, and then the studio take care of all the tech side for you and push that out to the audience. So if you're working with a good tech provider, it really makes it very simple and very quick to do. And you can see it levels up your whole presentation. You can present your brand message in a really dynamic, exciting way. And as well as that, you can get to a whole new audience. Because with webcasting, your audience don't have to come to you. You can go to the audience. And where your audience is, especially in the current situation, is Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, sites like that. So webcasting enables you to get right to them in their comfort zone. Like for example, every business already has a Facebook page. You can just use your Facebook page and webcast directly through Facebook Live, and that will push your video to every single customer who likes your page. And you can interact with them live via Facebook chat, which is an extremely powerful way of getting to a lot of people very, very quickly. And there's no barrier to entry. You remove any friction getting to them because they're using their standard web browser or the mobile app they're used to. They don't have to download some special software or create an account and so on. And it's all internet based. So that's great when you're trying to do remote broadcasting and remote recording, which is a huge win in the situation we have at the moment. So it's a lot of possibilities, as you can see right there. And at the end of the day, it's not an either or choice. Both approaches are completely valid. You can still use GoToWebinar for the type of pre-qualified clients you might have, or you can use something like webcasting to get to that bigger audience. So, and both approaches are completely valid. And over the past few months, webcasting technology, it's really leaped ahead. And I'd say it's definitely where the market's headed right now. So don't be afraid to embrace these kind of popular platforms to level up the messaging. And speaking of messaging, I think that's a good segue back to you, Mike. Let's talk about how people should go about choosing that messaging and their topics and panel and moderator and so on.
Yeah, so this is how we basically sort of kick off, like we say, our discovery section of coming up with any webinar, and that's we break it into topic, messaging, panel, and moderator. And so we're going to assume that the reason you're running a webinar is part of a sales and marketing campaign to raise awareness of your business and product and feed into your sales pipeline. To find a topic, we want to create a topic that is industry focused and deals with the key problems and challenges that your target audience are facing. You shouldn't be using this as an opportunity to do lengthy product demos and hard selling. And so the messaging we build out from the topic, and we found, like I've said before, a series of roundtable discussions is a nice soft sell over a long sales period. We work in B2B tech marketing, so these sales cycles can be anywhere from like 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. When we look at a panel, they should be built out from your network. So we think about including a partner, see if one of your customers want to take part. And also you should be reaching out to industry leaders and influencers, because it's always great to have a reason to reach out to these people. And your choice of moderator should be from your panel, or you could use this as an opportunity to reach out to potential partners or customers and invite them to moderate. So again, giving you a reason to reach out. So that's really our 4 considerations that really inform the content and structure of your event. And when you've made those decisions, everything else will start to fall into place. And I'll hand back to Rodney now to look at pre-production.
All right, thanks, Mike. So now you've made those early stage discovery decisions. You know what you want to do. You know what your content and your platform is. The next stage is putting the word out before the event itself. So I sat down earlier with the Ditto design team, Jess Black and Jess Migliori, and we made a little pre-recorded video showing how they designed the branding and the identity for the digital event. So let's have a look at that.
So where do you start with design projects? Is there a method for coming up with a particular look and feel?
Yeah, sure. So usually we'll start with a brainstorming conversation. We like to get as many people as possible involved in these from both the design team and the account management team. And we found that the more avenues we explore at the beginning, the tighter the brief will be for the work we end up producing. We have a methodology within Ditto that we'd like to use. We call it bold, bolder, and boldest. With that, we come up with 3 completely different design ideas to broach with the client and gather their opinions and insight into how bold they want to go with the project. Jess and I will then go away and pull together some visual mood boards to convey the rough ideas we'd like to explore. We pull inspiration from anywhere and everywhere, really. Pinterest, Behance, awards.com, it's nice that. Anywhere we can explore new ideas from.
Yeah, great. Is there a recent design project for a client that you're particularly proud of?
So a couple of weeks ago, we launched a new website for one of our long-standing clients, Legerity. We've worked with them for a few years now, and their CEO, Jeremy, was really keen to push the boundaries with an updated look and feel. They work in insurance regulation, so the space they're in is quite corporate, and it was really fun to be allowed the freedom to go big and bold with the end result. We developed new messaging for them with a killer tagline, some really bold video work, and an awesome new website. I think that project was definitely a highlight for both of us.
So do you collect ideas and inspiration all the time, or just go with what looks right in the moment?
Yeah, I think like most designers, we feel constantly inspired by the things around us. Our workspace in the office is incredibly visual and collaborative. We like to feel visually stimulated. As a team, we attend creative talks and go to exhibitions outside of work as well, so that really helps. We do try to push ourselves more with each new project and be conscious to not fall behind design trends. But it is important early on to establish with the client the type of message they want to convey. In that instance, we can then both, even subconsciously, draw inspiration from things we see throughout the day.
Yeah, I can see that. So what design elements go into the production of digital events like this?
So there are various stages to the production schedule leading up to putting on an event. One of the most important parts we found is ensuring that everyone involved has the right content to promote with. We create full panel banners to advertise the event on social media, but we also provide the panelists with their own individual banners for self-promotion, and this helps us to reach a much bigger audience. It's also a good idea to think about other forms of content that you could put out across your channels and really create a drumbeat leading up to the event. Then we focus our attention to creating a slide deck for the day. We try to keep them light but visual. You want to keep your audience engaged whilst avoiding the dreaded death by PowerPoint moment. Keep in mind, though, that this will form the basis of your follow-up recording, so make sure it's as accurate as possible. That will then save you some post-editing time after the event. We also like to keep the audience as informed as possible leading up to the event. We do this by creating additional assets like speaker bios and full agenda documents. And this can also help to give weight to your event by showing the full volume of people and companies involved.
How did you manage to turn those Big Boost Mondays live events into a digital event?
Well, as this was the start of our own Ditto project, we started with a totally blank slate. The evening itself is made up of customised promotional video, which is played in the background on a projector, flyers dispersed around the room promoting our next event, and 5 to 6 pieces of video content played throughout the talk for the guest speaker and our presenter Joseph to discuss. And it snowballed from there really into a successful reoccurring event. Due to the current situation, we've luckily been able to make Big Boost Mondays digital. Using GoToWebinar, we have webcams on and a page showcasing the relevant videos to aid the discussion, to which the audience can click and view in real time. We found this to be a great success and had over 500 audience members attend our last digital event with Martin Ware.
All right. Thank you to Jess and Jess for that. So the primary driver for digital events, like any event, it's getting bums on seats. That's the bottom line. So let's go to Hayley McCarthy, who's a Ditto account manager who specializes in the invitation and promotion process. So Hayley, how can firms put together a list of targets to invite to an event?
Yeah, thanks, Rodney. So it's basically, you really need to look at who you want to target. Ensure your marketing and sales team are definitely aligned. Know who you're messaging. So whether you're messaging C-suites, whether you're messaging project managers, know the person that you're really trying to get hold of. We always tell our sales team to target at least 10 key dream accounts. In these dream accounts, they've got to be people that you really want to drive to the webinar. And when you come across this, you need to just be realistic with the targets you set yourself. Not all of these are going to be C-suite roles. Create separate messaging for each position for the business. So we recommend you do 3 separate messages that come out of that send out to each individual person.
All right. So once you've got those targets lined up, how do you do the email invitation process from there?
Yeah, of course. So we allow for 2 to 3 weeks to get your contacts engaged and signing up for your digital event. There are many platforms you can use, as you can see in front of you, the HubSpot, MailChimp, Mailer. We use HubSpot. We find it quite good in regards to data insights. You can look at who's viewed your email and who's clicked on your email. Always make sure when you're sending out these emails that you've got a simplified subject line. So when emailing, keep it short. For instance, blockchain webinar and the date and time of when it's going to happen. And I'd advise sending out these 3 emails with a slight change to the subject line each time. So for instance, 1 week to go into our blockchain webinar. Now, for every email you send out, make sure you're sending out a personalized message. So make sure you add in their first name and give a really clear call to action. So we always use the buttons, click here to sign up. In addition, give them 3 key points why they should attend. What's the benefit for them? Finally, give your potential audience an insight, such as a pull quote, or as we've done for TechCity Connect, something along the lines of an industry article. And I would recommend, if you're looking at gaining brand new contacts from your dream contact list you've generated, put them into a list which you can work through, and then you can see if the messaging sticks. And with this, it allows you to change up the messaging where you see fit.
Right. Yeah, that's excellent. So what else have you got apart from email marketing? Social media, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rodney. So if we look onto the next slide, it's really the power of your social network. So I always say you need to be productive, and LinkedIn is my hero when it comes to that, because you don't have an issue so much with GDPR. So I use Sales Navigator. Look at this at least 3 to 4 weeks in advance and try and connect with your dream audience. Always when you're connecting, write a small summary of why you want to connect. So I say something along the lines of, hello, I've come across your profile. I can see that you're interested in the finance industry. It would be good to connect. I've got some really good insight for you, content which I would like to share with you. Look forward to hearing from you soon. And another way of using your LinkedIn is by going on to LinkedIn groups. There's always groups around the subject that you're trying to speak about. So that's another way of getting the banners from your design team and sending them out with the invitation and the invitation link. And when you go into groups, please ensure that you are also interacting within the group. More often than not, you can find that your dream team that you're really hoping to target, your dream in those types of groups anyway. So try and look for anything they've put on there, interact with them. That's always a good way. And finally, another way of doing this is if you go onto LinkedIn now, you can actually add in an event, which we've done for TechCity Connect. And this allows you to invite contacts from your current list, all your connections, and it's a great way to get in contact with those people you haven't been in contact with for quite some time. And it also helps you as well promote your event, and it allows for the people in that group to invite other individuals from their network.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
finally, I would say if you look at, well, from what Design showed earlier from the presentation, if you keep your content interactive and fun, use pull quotes, use panel videos, sliding imagery, and add this onto your company profile, and make sure everyone's sharing from your company profile. So that's also very, very important. So when you're an individual, you're sharing and raising brand awareness for yourself as well. And finally, I'd just say tag your panel and ensure they're doing the same thing. Ensure they're pushing the webinar out for you as well.
Great. Thank you, Hayley. Back to Mike, I think.
Brilliant. So now we've decided on content and started inviting our audience, it's time to think about the big day. So I'd like to bring in Jonathan Singer now, another Ditto account manager who's run a number of digital events. Jonathan, can you talk us through how you brief the panel ahead of the big day?
Sure thing, Mike. So for any performance or event, we can all imagine that it takes a lot of practice to be spontaneous. So in order to make your conversation flow naturally, it's important that your panelists are briefed on the central theme of the content, what the format of the conversation will be, and what guiding questions or central talking points the moderator will be presenting. If you can go to the next slide, thank you. So in order to do so, we'll first provide a detailed brief, as you can see on screen from our earlier future of working and learning event. So the objective with this is to share what your goals are, discuss the central theme, as well as give some contextual copy to the panel. After this, we'll have an introductory call with all of the panelists and the moderator so that they can meet each other, get to understand each other's backgrounds, and comment on those central questions that we're going to use to frame the conversation. So taking their input, as just discussed, the discovery phase is incredibly important. We'll further refine the questions and create a run of show, as you can see on screen. We'll circulate the run of show with the panel and hold a tech test. Super important. So this is to make sure that the panel is comfortable with the streaming software, and we do a page turn of the run of show. So it's going through those final questions, making sure that we've worked out any kinks, and you get a test of how long your content will take to run.
And in terms of production on the day, Jonathan, what are some pointers for making your digital content shine?
Sure. In order to make your content shine, you need to think about two parts. It's the audio, the video, or any visual logistics. So in briefing your panel, it's incredibly important that you highlight the use of headphones for higher audio quality, being in a quiet space that won't have any echo or reverberation. And as we all, I'm sure, have seen the broadcasters interrupted by a dog, standing up and they're not wearing trousers. You need to make sure that your household and your environment is suited to what you will be presenting. The other part is the video or the visual aspect. And so using engaging slides or video results in higher engagement from the audience. Play to your strengths though. If you don't have sufficient design resources, there's multiple free deck templates online. Alternatively, using video cameras with a live feed of speakers can add a personal touch to your content.
Great, thank you, Jonathan. A big part of digital events is the shepherding of panelists from one question to another. Joseph Lee has moderated a series of both live and digital events for Ditto's Campfire and Big Boost Mondays. So Joseph, how do you go about getting to know your panelists ahead of time?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mike. As you alluded there, I'm the host of Ditto's Cultural Campfire Big Boost events, but it's not just the cultural cats I speak to. I also manage the moderation for client webinars too. So just before I touch on getting to know your panel, I'd like to just make a few words on moderation management. As I said, I've moderated webinars today, and I've also managed 2 moderators, and this is the 4th webinar I'm part of as a guest speaker. So you may not always be in the driving seat yourself. You can get third-party moderators in to lead your panel discussions too, which is what we've done today on TechCity Connect. if you aren't moderating yourself, you need to make sure you're in good contact with your chosen moderator throughout. And they sometimes have a tendency to digress, so it's great to have their mobile number, know their Slack chat, so you can really communicate with them at all times. So you might know the topic, but do you know your speakers? As John mentioned, you need to make sure that whoever is moderating has had the introductory call with panelists, this briefing call. So no one's really going into the talk cold. This introduction call is vital as well for each speaker to be comfortable with the moderator's style and tone and their phrasing. The moderator might know the topic very well, but it's really important to get down and develop this rapport with speakers, because that can really help to inform discussion. And moderators can do a little bit of independent research on speakers, a little bit of background research. What have they recently been a part of? What events do they attend? Are they a chair of a board? And really trying to understand their story to get that across. I also recommend having an online green room area as well, where you can chat ahead of showtime. We've done that today on our digital hangout, which has been a roaring success. And we also have around 10 minutes before the webinar starts in our green room on GoToWebinar, so we can just nail out some final points we want to cover as well. Also, some golden nuggets can crop up during this time, and helps make sure that the run of show is aligned to. And remember, if you're a moderator, really relate back to the speaker as a person and draw on their expertise, because it's these experiences and backgrounds that will provide the key market insights, really. And get your speaker to briefly explain who they are at the start of the session, like the moderator can welcome the speaker on, and so the audience can really familiarize themselves with the tone of voice and who's actually speaking. And it is a show as well. So with digital, you've got a real opportunity to create some slick, rich media assets, but practice makes perfect. I believe John touched on that as well.
Brilliant. And how do you move it along? How do you get your panelists from A to B?
How long have we got left, Mike? Yeah, so you really need to structure your moderation. This is where the run of show we mentioned before really comes into play, because you can sketch out individual section timings throughout your run of show. And if you're the moderator, it's great to have a timer ticking down on your personal screen as well, just so you know that you're keeping to pace. And you can do this by steering the conversation. If you're managing a moderator, make sure you liaise with them, the framing of discussion points. As I mentioned, some moderators have a tendency to digress slightly or provide their own anecdotes or their research, which can be valuable, but you need to make sure that these main points are made without running out of time. And this is where the run of show comes into play. And don't be afraid to prompt your speaker as well, and invite discussion from specific panelists. If you feel like a certain panelist hasn't been involved in the conversation too much, you can invite them in and make sure everyone's got a good spread there and a good basis to cover the discussion. And make sure that the conversation is also organic as well, moving through the right cadence and rhythm. If you do have a few minutes spare though, which can happen, why not double down on an interesting part of that section or a poignant point that's been made, because time does go a lot slower than you think. Do you have enough content, and are you prepared to take the floor really and step in and get the discussion back on track if your panelists come up short or digress too much? So keep a few tricks up your sleeve really, I guess, and a couple of curveballs in your back pocket.
Brilliant. And how do you make sure you keep the event engaging? I guess you sort of touched on this a bit already in your sort of keeping to schedule, but how do you keep it engaging but make sure you get all the important information in there?
Sure. Yeah, so those curveballs can really come into play, reinvigorating the talk slightly and putting some new energy into it. But you do need to be aware of your audience. You do need to make sure that vital or complex info has been communicated and they understand this information, and they can identify that as well. I mean, ideally, we want the audience member to leave the webinar and go and talk to people about the webinar, or oh, I heard so and so say this about this. So that's really important, those water cooler moments. Obviously in lockdown it's our own kitchens, But yeah, so it's really important to pass on and impart knowledge and sort of thought leadership, and then that helps raise the profile of your speakers as well, imparting this thought leadership. And yeah, reach out to the audience as well. I mean, at the top of the webinar, you can sort of invite the audience to send in their questions. This is done on GoToWebinar through the toolbar. It's really effective as well if you have another panelist in your team as well who can relay those audience questions back. Also, we've done a digital hangout, as I mentioned, which has been really valuable in, if we can't ask all of the questions in time, we can invite audience members, panelists, other attendees to join this hangout to really carry on the discussion. And make sure you leave the audience with some key takeaways as well, some closing comments that they can share with others. Let your audience know how to get in touch with the panelists as well, because this is maybe a sales opportunity for your speakers. I'm thinking with my client webinar hat on there. And so yeah, just to finally say, I don't want to take too much time, but a webinar creates opportunity to create some really rich content and campaigns that run long after the session. So a 45-minute show has a 90-day tail, and I just want to make sure you keep that wagging.
Brilliant. All right, thank you very much, Joseph. And now I'm going to hand back to Rodney to talk us through publishing.
Yeah, I mean, just to take up the point that Joseph made at the end there, it's a 45-minute show, but it's a 90-day tail. And that's really where your value is, because the webinar or the webcast, whatever you're doing, is not the end of the process, it's the beginning of the process. So I think we should go to next short to have a chat about how to get the maximum value out of all the hard work you've done. But first we'll take a look at another little interview we did earlier with the two Jesses from design to have a look at how they handle event follow-up content.
What's the importance of the show page or having a summary landing page specific to an event like this?
Well, we know that the content will have a much greater reach after the event, almost 10 times actually, simply due to timings and availability. For this reason, the show pages are crucial for pushing out our content. Also, the beauty of a recording, especially the webinars, is they can be chopped up into multiple different assets, which can be pushed around social media. This also means that we can target the assets to specific audiences, as we want to make viewing as easy as possible for the viewer.
Well, that makes sense. What do you include in these post-event pages?
We like to include a complete roundup of the event. Primarily, this is to offer as close an experience to the real thing as possible for anyone that couldn't attend. This usually includes the full recording, the details of the panel members with direct links to their LinkedIn profiles and social channels so that audience can get in contact directly. We can also use these pages to spotlight the companies involved, as well as promoting additional assets like follow-up articles, podcasts, and playlists.
Yeah, great. Is it important to have a quick turnaround of the event recording?
Well, we like to get the recording out as soon as possible, really, as often people cannot make the live viewing. It is also crucial so that the event is still fresh on the viewer's mind and then is more likely to take action in getting in touch with one of the companies or speakers or following their work on social media platforms.
So what have you learned from now running a number of digital events like these?
Well, I guess as with most successful events, practice makes perfect, and often it takes a lot of trial and error to create an outcome that we're happy with. We found that the more events that we put on, we've picked up new tricks and ways of doing things. We found that running at least 2 tech tests prior to the events with all of the speakers to get a flavour of what they'll be showing and its duration is really helpful. It also enables us to flag any errors sooner rather than later. With Big Boost Mondays, we always run physical tech tests in the space a few days beforehand, so we can see what it will look like on the big screen and from the audience perspective, as things always look different when they're blown up. This also enables us to realise any gaps in the presentation and also to see whether the videos sound okay using the headphones. When it comes to digital events like webinars, it's crucial for panelists to be set up in a space with little to no background noise and using good quality headphones and a mic.
All right. Really useful info there. Thank you to the two Jesses for that. And let's go to copywriter Nick Short, who joined Ditto just in March, but has already worked on content for pre and post campaign stuff. So Nick, can you talk us through the best practices for the follow-up via email?
Thanks, Rodney. I can indeed. I think first, let's talk about why it's important to send a follow-up email to your attendees. You've drawn them in with your event, and now is your chance to carry on the conversation. It's all about sort of maintaining your momentum. They're interested now, and that will only fade the longer that you leave it to get in touch. So when it comes to building that email, I think it's important to remember your audience. It's not your average email. You're not sending it out cold. You already have a connection to these people. After all, they joined your digital event and took time out of their day to engage with you. This means that you can be a bit warmer in the tone, more familiar, and a little less vague about your approach. You've already engaged them on a specific topic, so the idea is to just keep that flow going. I think it's important, especially when it comes to the attendees who had questions in the Q&A during the digital event, whether you had a chance to answer those questions or not. Now's your chance to sort of follow up on those questions and turn their query into an appointment. In terms of the copy within the email, I think the number one tip that I have for this is just to keep it simple. So much great stuff's going to come out of your digital event, but the follow-up email is not the place to sort of try and lay all of that out. It can be tempting to go over every topic that your panel covered, but before long, you're trying to work out how to fit the kitchen sink into the email. So realistically, it's important to focus on the end goal. What do you want your prospects to do? Usually that's a case of clicking through to the show page where they can rewatch the event. So just don't let anything else get unnecessary get in the way of them reaching that point. Ideally, stick to one line of thought, one idea that's going to carry them through from clicking onto the email through to clicking onto the show page. And I think it just is a little extra tip for the copywriting. I think if you're straying much beyond 100 to 150 words in the email, this suggests that you're either trying to say too much or that what you want to say is too complicated. And those just are some of the things that you should be thinking about for the follow-up email, Rodney.
Yeah, that's really useful stuff. But can you explain then how you take webinar content and reuse that going forward then after that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'd like to come back to the idea that a digital event is not just a single touch point, but it's a content moment with a long tail. As we've seen with the follow-up email, the conversation doesn't end when the webinar goes off air. If anything, it's the starting point for those who weren't in attendance. So, and there are so many ways to make use of the content in your digital event to grab the attention of prospects. I think one of the best ways to do this is to start at the end and work backwards. Think about your end goal, which is usually to drive prospects to a gated piece of content, which gives them more insight and context around the topic. And it also gives you a chance to capture their contact details to further conversations. Ideally, you want a long form piece of content for this to justify why people are sharing their contact details with you. And I think white papers are perfect. And there's no set method for building a white paper to take advantage of this, but I think a good way to make sure that it sits alongside your digital event on your show page is to combine some of your own research with the insights offered by your panel of experts. This allows you to use their quotes and comments whilst offering a little more context than maybe they had a chance to go into during the event itself. And once you've done that with your white paper in place, you can then start curating a larger collection of content around it. A good way to do this, I think, is to split your white paper into chunks, creating shorter articles around the different topics you cover. You can then break these down into messages for social posts, which will sit alongside your video strategy as well. So for the sake of argument, let's say that you split your white paper into 5 shorter articles. Then you create 3 social posts from each of those articles. You've now got 20 additional pieces of content to share and lead prospects back to your show page and white paper. Ultimately, your digital event is a gold mine for content. So go out there and mine that gold.
Yeah, that's excellent.
I think we're running out of time now. We're right up at the end. So, but this has been a really informative and very practical session, which I think has been great. A lot of thanks to our panel for sharing with their insights and for bringing the whole event today to the market. To find out more about Ditto and the services they provide, of course, go to ditto.tv. And this session has been recorded, as I think Mike said earlier. A link to the video will be shared via email to everyone. If you want more information or a copy of today's slides, if you want to discuss any of the topics covered, get in touch via control@ditto.tv. I think there's one more thing happening after this. Is that right, Mike?
That's right. We are, if I bring up the slide in front of me, we're going to a special campfire with Richard Norris next, which is a sort of hour-long mix of his music. So something to really look forward to. But we should point out that before that, we'll all be jumping on the digital hangout, which is ditto.tv/TCC. So that's where we're going next.
Okay, excellent. I'll see you all there. And thank you very much, everyone who attended. It's been great. We really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Bye.